He carried a paralyzed alien girl toward the ocean at midnight, and the satellites watching from orbit recorded something no advanced civilization had ever predicted about humans. The wind was cold along the cliffs, sharp and salty, pushing against Daniel Reyes as he tightened his grip. Lyra felt light in his arms. Too light. The Pacific roared below them, endless and dark, glowing silver under the moon. Every step Daniel took over the uneven rocks felt like a decision that could ruin his career, or change two worlds forever. 3 days earlier, Daniel had been nothing special. Just a field engineer stationed at the Mendocino Coastal Research Facility. His job was to monitor atmospheric disturbances and make sure the expensive equipment did not explode during storms. Then the sky split open. The object fell without fire. No explosion. No sound barrier crack. It simply appeared and then descended like it had always known where it wanted to land. The military called it a meteor. Daniel had seen meteors. Meteors did not land gently. When the perimeter was set and scientists were called in, Daniel found himself assigned to assist Dr. Mira Katri, xenobiologist, calm under pressure, sharp-eyed, impossible to impress. And inside the silver, curved craft that looked grown instead of built, they found her. Lyra. She looked human. Almost perfectly human. Except for her ears, long, elegant, slightly curved backward, and her eyes, which held a kind of age that did not belong to someone who looked 25. And she could not move her legs. "I can feel the signals," she had said quietly while Mira ran scans. "But I am not responding to them. No spinal damage. No nerve damage. No trauma. Perfect biological structure. Impossible paralysis." The military wanted her transported immediately to a classified desert facility. Mira insisted she remain for medical observation. Daniel just watched. Watched the way Lyra studied everything. The ceiling. The lights. The way humans moved around her. The way they avoided staring too long. She asked strange questions. Why do humans help strangers? Why do you form attachments to temporary things? Why does your species create art when survival no longer requires it? Daniel had laughed at that one. Because survival isn't enough. Lyra had looked at him like he had just said something revolutionary. Over the next days, Daniel found himself volunteering to help. Adjusting her bed. Bringing her food. Explaining what seagulls were and why they screamed like tiny angry philosophers. She was fascinated by the ocean. "I watched it from orbit," she told him one evening. "It moves without efficiency. It crashes. It wastes energy. It is beautiful." "You've never seen it up close." No. There had been something in her voice when she said that. Longing. On the 4th night, Daniel overheard 2 officers talking. Transfer confirmed. 48 hours. Desert containment. Long-term study. He looked through the glass window at Lyra, who was watching a video of waves rolling onto shore. And something inside him refused to stay still. That night he walked into her room after midnight. "The patrol rotates every 2 hours, he said quietly. "There's a blind spot on the southern cliff trail." Lyra looked at him carefully. "You are proposing something irrational." "Yeah," he said. "I guess I am." "You would risk punishment." "Probably." "For me." He shrugged. "You wanted to see the ocean." Silence. Then she asked softly, "Would you carry me?" He did not hesitate. "Yes." Now, as Daniel stepped carefully down the narrow trail carved into rock, he felt every pound of her weight. His muscles burned. The path was uneven and steep. Lyra's arms rested around his shoulders. Her breathing was calm. Too calm. "You are struggling," she observed. "Yeah," he grunted. "That's part of the deal." "Why do you continue?" "Because stopping isn't the point." Above them, unseen by human eyes, 3 silent vessels hung in high orbit. Lyra's people. Observers. They had watched her mission. They had watched her simulate paralysis. They had watched her embed herself among humans to test a hypothesis. Her species had evolved beyond dependency. Beyond attachment. beyond what they called inefficient emotional entanglement. They had eliminated the need to carry one another. And with it, they had eliminated something else. Birth rates declined. Motivation declined. Purpose dissolved into sterile perfection. Lyra had argued that humans held the missing variable. Connection through choice. Not necessity. But theory was not proof. And so she had volunteered to test it herself. To see if a human, with no obligation, no genetic bond, no strategic benefit, would carry her. Daniel slipped on loose gravel, nearly falling. His knee hit rock. Pain shot upward. Lyra tightened her grip instinctively. "You are injured," she said. "I've had worse." This action serves no survival advantage. He laughed breathlessly. "You're really stuck on that, huh?" "Yes." "Well, maybe that's the problem." They reached the final stretch, soft sand leading to the shoreline. Daniel stepped onto the beach and felt his legs tremble with exhaustion. The ocean stretched wide before them, endless, alive, roaring under moonlight. He lowered her gently into the sand near the water's edge. Waves rolled forward and kissed her boots before retreating. Lyra stared. No analysis. No quantum breakdown. No molecular mapping. Just staring. "It's loud," she whispered. "Yeah." "It is chaotic." "Definitely." "It is unnecessary." He smiled. "Exactly." For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lyra looked small. Not powerful. Not ancient. Just present. Water rushed forward again, soaking the sand around her legs. And then something happened that the orbiting alien observers did not predict. Lyra leaned forward. Her hands pressed into the sand. Her toes flexed inside her boots. Muscles fired. Neural pathways responded. She stood. Slowly. Perfectly. Daniel stared up at her, frozen. "You," he breathed. "I was never paralyzed," she said softly. Above them, alien observers transmitted urgent data. Human subject demonstrated extreme cooperative action without coercion. Hypothesis confirmed. Emotional inefficiency produces resilience beyond predictive models. Lyra stepped into the shallow water. She laughed. It was not elegant. It was not controlled. It was messy and bright and alive. Daniel stood slowly, staring at her. "You lied to us." "Yes." "Why?" She turned toward him, waves crashing around her ankles. "Because my people forgot why we needed each other." She stepped closer. "And you just reminded us." Far above Earth, alien councils began recalculating centuries of philosophy. On a quiet California beach, one exhausted human stood in the surf beside an alien who had just proven something extraordinary. Humans would carry each other, even when they did not have to. And that changed everything. The moment Lyra stood up in the surf, satellites shifted. Encrypted channels opened. Military radars along the west coast lit up with signals that did not behave like aircraft, drones, or anything humans had names for. Daniel did not see any of that. He only saw Lyra standing in the ocean, steady, balanced, alive. "You could walk this whole time," he said, not angry, just stunned. "Yes." "You made me carry you." "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard from the climb. That's kind of manipulative." "It was necessary." "For what?" "A social experiment." Lyra looked toward the horizon. Far beyond human sight, faint shapes shimmered against the stars. "For survival," she said quietly. Back at the facility, alarms began to sound. 3 objects had appeared in high orbit. They were not attacking. They were not moving aggressively. They were simply watching. Inside command centers, analysts whispered the word fleet. On the beach, Daniel crossed his arms. "Start explaining." Lyra stepped out of the water. The waves continued their endless crashing behind her. "My people solved everything," she began. "Hunger, disease, conflict. We optimized existence." Sounds nice. It was. For a time. She looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers slowly, as if rediscovering gravity. But in removing need, we removed choice. In removing struggle, we removed meaning. Daniel frowned. Meaning doesn't disappear just because life gets easier. For humans, perhaps. For us, efficiency became law. Emotional dependence was classified as weakness. Cooperation was replaced with independence. She met his eyes. No one carried anyone anymore. A wind gusted across the sand. Daniel felt something bigger than himself unfolding. So you came here to prove, what? That voluntary burden creates strength. Daniel blinked. Voluntary burden. Yes. You carried me when there was no advantage. No reward. Only cost. And that's impressive. To my people, it is revolutionary. Before Daniel could answer, headlights cut across the cliffs. Military vehicles. Fast. Lyra did not look surprised. They tracked the orbital arrival, she said. You knew they were coming. I suspected. Daniel stared at her. You planned this. I hoped, she corrected softly. Helicopters thundered overhead, spotlights sweeping the shoreline. A loudspeaker crackled. Daniel Reyes. Step away from the entity immediately. Daniel glanced at Lyra. Entity. He stepped forward instead. She's not a threat. You are interfering with a classified operation. Lyra watched him carefully. You should step back, she murmured. This may escalate. Yeah, he said. That's kind of the theme tonight. From orbit, one of the alien vessels shifted position. Energy signatures flared briefly, not weapons, not yet, but enough to trigger every defense satellite Earth had. In Washington, generals prepared contingency plans they had prayed never to use. Daniel turned to Lyra urgently. Are they going to attack? No. Are you sure? They are here to observe the conclusion. Conclusion of what? Of you. That did not comfort him. Soldiers rushed down the beach, weapons raised but uncertain. No one wanted to be the first human to fire at an alien under international broadcast. Lyra stepped slightly in front of Daniel. The movement was subtle. Protective. Every rifle shifted toward her. She raised her hands slowly. I request dialogue, she said calmly. Her voice carried unnaturally far, as if the air itself cooperated. The lieutenant from the facility pushed forward. His jaw was tight. You deceived us. Yes. You faked paralysis. Yes. You manipulated our personnel. Lyra did not argue. Yes. Daniel looked between them. She didn't hurt anyone. That's not the point, the lieutenant snapped. Above them, one of the orbiting vessels emitted a pulse. Every electronic device on the beach flickered, then stabilized. A projection appeared in the sky. Massive. Transparent. Luminous. An alien figure formed, tall, slender, eyes like shifting constellations. Gasps rippled through the soldiers. The figure spoke, its voice layered and harmonic. Observation complete. The words vibrated through bone more than air. Lyra stepped forward into the glowing light. My report stands, she said clearly. Daniel felt suddenly very small. The alien projection continued. Human subject demonstrated self-sacrificial cooperation without coercion, genetic linkage, or resource exchange. Daniel whispered, self-sacrificial. Lyra did not look back. The projection's gaze shifted to the gathered humans. Your species exhibits irrational alliance behavior. One general muttered under his breath, that's one way to put it. The projection continued. Preliminary models underestimated the evolutionary strength of chosen interdependence. Lyra's voice softened. They believe independence is the highest form of advancement. Daniel swallowed. And you don't. She turned to face him fully now. I believe strength is not the absence of need. The projection pulsed brighter. Humanity demonstrates resilience through voluntary burden acceptance. The phrase sounded clinical. Cold. Daniel suddenly felt angry. "We're not lab rats," he shouted toward the sky. "You don't get to run experiments on us." Every soldier froze. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. The projection paused. Daniel stepped forward, voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. "You wanted proof that we carry each other? Fine. We do. That's who we are. But you don't get to test that without asking." The beach was silent except for waves. The alien figure flickered faintly. "Clarify," it said. "You could have just asked for help," Daniel replied. "We would have given it." Lyra stared at him. The projection's internal light patterns shifted rapidly, communication happening faster than human thought. Finally, it responded. "Request acknowledged." A ripple of shock moved through both species. Lyra's voice was barely audible. "They have never requested assistance from another civilization." Daniel crossed his arms. "Maybe it's time you start." Long seconds passed. Then the projection spoke again. "Proposal, cooperative exchange." Military commanders whispered urgently through earpieces. Daniel looked at Lyra. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "they are considering partnership." Above Earth, the 3 alien vessels powered down their defensive systems. Weapons signatures faded. Energy output stabilized into passive orbit. On the beach, tension drained inch by inch. The projection's final words echoed over ocean and sand. "Humanity possesses adaptive strength through connection. We seek understanding." The light dissolved. Stars returned to normal. Helicopters hovered uncertainly. Daniel exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. Lyra stepped closer to him. "You changed the outcome," she said quietly. "I just complained loudly." "You asserted dignity." She looked toward the sky. "My people forgot how to ask." Daniel looked at the ocean, then back at her. "So what happens now?" Lyra smiled, not calculated, not observational. "Human. Now," she said, "we learn how to carry each other." And far beyond Earth, in silent chambers of a civilization older than humanity's entire recorded history, a new idea began spreading. Perhaps perfection was not evolution's final form. Perhaps weakness, chosen freely, was not weakness at all. Perhaps the species that still helped strangers was the species that would outlast them all. The next morning, the entire world woke up to the same image. 3 alien vessels hanging silently above Earth. Not attacking. Not leaving. Waiting. News channels exploded. Social media crashed and rebooted under the weight of speculation. Some people prayed. Some panicked. Some made memes within 15 minutes. But something strange happened. No one rioted. No cities burned. Instead, people gathered. In parks. In churches. In living rooms. In cafes. Humans did what humans always did when facing the unknown. They looked for each other. Inside a temporary joint command center on the California coast, Lyra stood beside diplomats, scientists, and military officials. Daniel stood a few steps behind her, still wearing sand in his shoes from the night before. Across the room, a massive holographic projection shimmered into existence again. The Alien Council. This time, there were many figures, different shapes, different lights, all observing. Lyra stepped forward. "My report has been transmitted in full," she said. "Human cooperative behavior is not primitive. It is adaptive." One of the alien figures pulsed brighter. "Humanity remains technologically inferior." A general stiffened. Lyra did not. "Correct," she said calmly. "They are inefficient. Emotionally driven. Frequently contradictory." Daniel muttered, "Hey." She continued. "And yet they survive conditions that would destabilize our population." The projection shifted to global data. Images appeared, natural disasters, wars, pandemics, economic collapses. And beneath each one, recovery, rebuilding, volunteers forming chains to move rubble, strangers donating blood, communities feeding each other during blackouts. The alien council processed silently. One figure asked, "Why does your species endure repeated instability?" Daniel stepped forward before anyone could stop him. "Because we don't go through it alone." The room went quiet. Lyra watched him carefully. He swallowed, but continued. "Yeah, we fight. Yeah, we mess up. We're loud and dramatic and sometimes really dumb. But when things fall apart, we show up for each other." He pointed toward the hologram images. "That's not weakness. That's our system." The alien lights flickered rapidly, intense computation. "For millennia," one council member said, "we pursued independence as the highest state." Lyra's voice softened. "And what did it cost us?" Silence. Then something unexpected happened. The projection shifted again, this time showing alien cities. Perfect. Symmetrical. Silent. Birth rate statistics appeared. Declining. Motivation indexes. Falling. Psychological vitality markers. Deteriorating. One alien voice spoke, less harmonic now. "We eliminated dependency. We eliminated need. We eliminated vulnerability." "And you eliminated purpose," Lyra said gently. The council's glow dimmed slightly. Across Earth, millions watched the broadcast live. A farmer in Argentina. A teacher in Japan. A nurse in Nigeria. A mechanic in Canada. All listening to a conversation about the meaning of strength. Daniel stepped beside Lyra. "You wanted to know why we carry each other," he said toward the projection. "Because one day, we might need someone to carry us." He looked at Lyra. "And that's not shameful. That's human." The alien council processed for a long time. Long enough that news anchors filled silence with nervous commentary. Finally, the brightest figure spoke. "Humanity demonstrates resilience through mutual burden acceptance." Daniel sighed. "You keep saying it like it's a math equation." "It is," the alien replied. Then it paused. "But it is also admirable." The word felt heavy, earned. A murmur spread through the command center. The alien continued. "Proposal, cultural and philosophical exchange. Technological assistance in return for cooperative integration study." A diplomat leaned toward Daniel and whispered, "That means partnership." Lyra exhaled slowly. Her mission, her gamble, had worked. But the council was not finished. "There is risk," one alien said. "Emotional contagion may destabilize our society." Daniel smiled slightly. "Yeah," he said. "Feelings do that." Lyra looked at him. "For the first time in our history," she said clearly, "we request guidance." The world froze. An ancient civilization. Millions of years ahead. Asking humanity for help. Not weapons. Not resources. But understanding. The Council's final statement echoed across the planet. "We believed perfection was strength. You have shown us that connection is stronger." Outside, the three alien ships shifted formation. Not in dominance. Not in threat. But in alignment with Earth's orbital path. A symbolic gesture. Standing with. Not above. Days turned into weeks. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers. Engineers traded propulsion knowledge for social behavioral studies. Artists were invited aboard orbiting vessels. Musicians played for beings who had forgotten rhythm. Therapists were consulted by alien collectives trying to understand loneliness. And something incredible happened. Alien birth rates began to rise. Creative industries re-emerged in their civilization. Not because they needed survival, but because they rediscovered wonder. One evening, Daniel stood again on the same beach where everything had changed. Lyra stood beside him, watching the ocean crash under a golden sunset. "You altered two civilizations," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged. I just carried you. You carried an idea. He looked at her. So what happens now? She smiled, fully, freely. Now we both evolve. Above them, one alien vessel shimmered briefly before entering peaceful orbit. Not as watchers, but as neighbors. Lyra stepped closer to the water. This time, she did not need to pretend. And Daniel did not need to carry her. But he knew something important now. If she ever asked again, he would. Because humanity's greatest strength was never technology, never weapons, never speed or power. It was the simple, stubborn decision to say, "You don't have to do this alone." And in the vast, silent dark between stars, that decision echoed louder than any fleet. Humanity was not the strongest species because it had no weakness. Humanity was strongest because it chose to carry its weakness together. And the galaxy would never underestimate that again.